Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is now TowerGate episode 1000. 1000. December the 30th, 2019, Monday. Well, I know probably a lot of you are thinking, man, did you ever think when you started doing this that you would be at 1,000 videos and we still have a ways to go? To be honest with you, as most of you know how I started doing these videos, when I first started doing these videos, it was the farthest thing from my mind to think about how many videos is this going to take. I mean, Trump tweeted out that, he just learned that Obama was spying on him. I watched the next 2 or 3 days to see if Trump would walk it back. He didn't. He doubled it down. And he was taking all sorts of abuse in the media, but he just kept doubling down on it. And after 3 days of that, I said, hey, there must be something here because Trump's not backing down. And so I just never really thought about where it would all end. I just thought, okay, I'm just going to start covering this story. And then after a few months of covering the story and more information was coming out, there was a point there where I thought, okay, there's definitely something here, something definitely going on. There's enough information out there now to where something definitely stinks. It was just a gut feeling, and that's when I thought, I need to get a blog page and just start keeping a timeline of events, of all the facts that we're learning to go along with my videos, because it's much quicker for me to process information by going to my timeline and just getting facts in a timeline fashion, as opposed to my videos, which there's a lot of rambling and stuff that goes on in the midst getting out facts. So no, I never really thought about whether or not I would get into this, but once I put up the timeline and once we were about 6 months into this whole thing, I realized that there was a lot that needed to be learned and that would take some time. And then I first realized that this was going to become a long haul when Uncle Bob the Executioner was appointed special counsel. At that point, I thought, oh, God, a special counsel? Well, this is going to drag on for a year or two or whatever. And it's at that point that I knew it was going to be a pretty long journey through this Spygate story before we got to the end of it. So that's kind of where that is. But anyway, what I want to do today is I want to really focus in on Mifsud, Joseph Mifsud. So I just want to go through and review a lot of the facts that we know about Mifsud and try to come to some sort of an idea of what may be going on with Mifsud. As you know, the two most recent things that have occurred with Mifsud is a couple of months ago, we hear this story, and it's reported in the Italian press and other people reporting on it as well, that someone had brought forth an audio tape about 19 minutes long, which they claim is Joseph Mifsud. And this individual on this audio tape is basically explaining that he's not part of any intelligence agencies. He's just a diplomat, just a guy that introduces people to other people, and that he's never been paid by an intelligence agency, especially the Russians, and all this sort of stuff. Never gives any really great detail about anything, but he does say that he is formulating his thoughts and that he is working on some things, and that at some point he is going to come out and fully, go public with everything about his story. Now, this is not the same audio tape that Barr and Durham heard. The audio tape that Barr and Durham heard was a deposition that Mifsud gave to the Italian authorities when he went asking for protection. And they asked him to give a deposition and to say who it is or why it is that he feels he needs police protection. That is what Barr and Durham have heard. This most recent one, of course, is still in dispute whether it was even Mifsud. They had a couple different voice analysis experts listen to the tape, and they can't agree. One says, nah, I don't think that's Mifsud, and the other one says, yes, I think that's dead on Mifsud. So we don't know if this last audio tape is even legit or not. It's just kind of floating around out there. And then, of course, the other thing that happened was shortly after that, we get the Italian papers writing stories reporting that the Italian authorities had determined that they're 80% likely, they feel 80% sure that Mifsud is dead. Okay, so Sarah Carter contacts one of these law enforcement people, the Italian security services, and she interviews him, and basically that's what he tells her. Yeah, we basically were involved in a criminal investigation. Mifsud was the head guy at this university somewhere near Malta or Morocco or somewhere, and there was two things going on there. There's some missing funds, and there's large scale misuse of funds. So it's a criminal matter. So they wanted to send him a summons to court. And in doing so, they had to find him. But after several months of trying to locate him to send him a summons, the trail's gone cold. They cannot find him to send him a summons. And so at this point in their investigation, they're concluding that they're about 80% sure that he's dead. And this is all they really say. They say dead. They don't really say how he died. They don't use the word passed away or anything like that. They just say the word dead. What does that mean? It can mean a lot of things. We just don't know. So let's go through and review some of what we do know and what we have learned about Mifsud, and then we'll see if from that we can ascertain what may actually be going on with Mifsud. So Mifsud is 59 years old. As far as we know, we've never heard, nor has he ever stated anything on any of these audio tapes about having any health issues. As far as we know, he's a 59-year-old healthy man. He's also, of course, as you know, he's not a Russian. He doesn't even speak Russian. He is Maltese. He speaks fluent Italian, however, and he speaks some Greek and some other European languages, but he definitely does not speak Russian, and he has nothing to do with Russia other than the fact that he has traveled there. He has some diplomatic friends there. That's it. He really has no personal relationships with any government officials in Russia. It's just all a bunch of diplomats and people in academia. Mifsud is believed to have been at the RT dinner where Michael Flynn was attending and gave a speech. As we know, we learned that from Sidney Powell, who several weeks ago requested documents from the DOJ and the FBI that she believed would prove something that she was trying to prove, which is that she believed that she had learned from some source within, I guess, a source within the FBI, that they had some information that Mifsud was actually there at that RT dinner where Flynn was, where we also believe Halper was, which is where we believe that they begin to run the game on Flynn. So that was Sidney Powell that really raised our awareness to the fact that Mifsud may have also been at that RT dinner with Halper, where Michael Flynn attended and I believe gave a speech for which he was paid. Both Papadopoulos and Mifsud were on staff at this London Center for International Law, as well as Papadopoulos' wife. That is where he met her. So first, it's Mifsud goes to work there, and I think 2015, and then Papadopoulos is brought in, lured there to go to work at the London Center for International Law. That's where he meets his wife, Simona. Mifsud introduced Papadopoulos to a woman that he said was Putin's niece, and then we later find out that Putin has no niece. And that's important, because what does that tell us about Mifsud? Well, it tells us that Mifsud tells tales. He lied. He lied blatantly. There's no question about that. No one denies that. Even he admits that he told Papadopoulos that this girl was Putin's niece, when in fact she's just some girl who was attending Link University who actually is a wine salesman. That tells us a lot. Keep that in mind. Mifsud is prone to telling lies. A lot of people in the intelligence community tell a lot of lies. You know what I mean? Papadopoulos says that Mifsud told him about Russians having Hillary Clinton's emails back on April of 2016 in London. Since that time, we know that we've learned that Mifsud, when questioned by the FBI in February of 2017, denied saying anything to Papadopoulos about Russians having Hillary's emails. But keep in mind, we've just learned that Mifsud lies. And if I have to believe one of the two people, I believe Papadopoulos. Why is that? Well, Papadopoulos isn't hiding from anybody. The only time we didn't hear from Papadopoulos is when he was under a gag order. And I think that that was on purpose, that they put him under a gag order while they were waiting to charge him with crimes to keep him quiet so that he couldn't go out and talk about Mifsud and others. But if you remember, it was during that time that his wife went out and started doing interviews on TV until they served her with a subpoena to be interviewed by Mueller, which shut her up. And if you go back to the very beginning, what Papadopoulos told the FBI, what he has said in his books, what he has said in his speeches, what he has said in TV interviews has never changed. Papadopoulos' story has never changed. And he's not gone underground. In fact, just opposite. As soon as he was able to get out and talk, he did and continues to. He's running for Congress. He's got a book. He does a weekly YouTube video now. On the other hand, Mifsud goes underground. And we know that he certainly lied to Papadopoulos about the girl being Putin's niece. We assume that he's lying to the FBI about telling Papadopoulos about Russians having emails. So we can clearly see that of the two men we're dealing with here, Papadopoulos and Mifsud, if you have to believe one or the other, you have to believe Papadopoulos. He sounds and acts like an innocent man, and his story hasn't changed. Mifsud, on the other hand, acts very suspicious, and he has lied. Mifsud is connected to Western intelligence people, including his association with Link University, and he also has affiliations with the U.S. State Department. And these are all known facts. These are all known facts. Papadopoulos' wife says that Mifsud dined with the Rotten Reverend Clinton and some left-wing Italian officials while in Europe back in 2016. So he obviously knows the Rotten Reverend Clinton. We have Durham and Barr, who met with Italian officials in August and September of this past year, 2019, to inquire about Mifsud. And the Italian officials released a press statement afterwards. And in that statement, they said they told Barr and Durham that they have no connections, no activities, no interference in any Mifsud matters. So to that, I don't believe, my gut is telling me that the Italian officials are not telling the truth. And probably Barr and Durham don't believe them either, because amongst the various stories that came out from the Italian press after the second visit by Barr and Durham to Italy, we learned that Barr and Durham were pressing them very hard, and that those meetings got pretty heated, because apparently Barr and Durham, after coming back the second time, made it pretty clear to Italian officials that they weren't exactly believing what they were being told. Horowitz, Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz, found no FBI records that would indicate Mifsud was working for the FBI. Doesn't mean he wasn't, just means that Horowitz did not find the records. Could be quite a few reasons for that. Mifsud was photographed with many Western officials when he was at a function which featured primarily Boris Johnson. He also, Mifsud, has a very good relationship, personal relationship, and working relationship with Claire Smith, who was the head of the UK's version of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Part of her job was vetting people. She was an expert on intelligence matters and informants and agents and things and such. Certainly, if anyone could have spotted a Russian agent, it would have been Claire Smith. She worked with Mifsud at 3 different places in the UK, including at Stirling University, where they both taught as professors. So it's hard to believe that he's a Russian intel agent if he's meeting with all these Western intel officials, including very high-ranking people over in the UK, especially one of the top-ranking intelligence officials in the country whose job it is to vet people to do intelligence work for the United Kingdom. Mifsud has a friend and a lawyer we've heard a lot about. He's a Swiss businessman named Stephen Rowe, who does speak fluent Russian and several other languages, and his wife is Russian. She's a very well-known clothing designer in Russia and sells her stuff all over Europe. And they're world travelers. They get around. They have homes in 5 or 6 cities, Hong Kong, Greece, Russia, Italy. So he's a very wealthy man, and he got involved with Mifsud when Mifsud was boasting about how he had connections to all these people, and then he got Rowe involved in investing into Link University, so it would be a good investment. Rowe did invest, and he's 5% has 5% share in Link University, and he did some legal work for Mifsud and regards him as a friend. However, he says that he hasn't seen him in about over 2 years. But there's something else that's very interesting about Stephen Rowe, and that is a photograph of Stephen Rowe posing in a picture, just he and Slick Willie. Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton and Stephen Rowe, all smiles, posing in a picture, we assume taken somewhere either in the US or in Europe somewhere. We're not sure where the picture was taken or even when it was taken, but based on looking at Slick Willie, it was definitely post-presidency, because his hair is all gray and he's heavier. It's the more older version of Bill Clinton, not the younger version of Bill Clinton when he was president. So it's a relatively, we can say, recent photo, probably less than 10, no more than 15 years. So Bill Clinton definitely knows Stephen Rowe. Mifsud was living in Italy at a home owned by Link University, and he was there until 2018. Durham acquired 2 phones that were being used by Mifsud. Both of these phones had UK SIM cards. Mifsud has a girlfriend, and they had a young child together. That child would now be about 3 or 4 years old, less than 4. Because when the child was 2 months old, that's the last time she saw or heard from Mifsud. He basically deserted this, what he described as his fiancée, she had just given birth to their child, and 2 months later, he disappears, and he disappears after his name comes out, and his name came out after Papadopoulos was charged by the Mueller team. About a week after he's charged by the Mueller team, the name Mifsud comes out. Boom, Mifsud goes underground. That's the last time his fiancée and the child had heard from him. And by the way, the fiancé is Ukrainian. Mifsud also has an adult daughter, and she lives in the UK. Mifsud was last seen at Link University in November of 2017. We have an Italian paper that says Mifsud was seen in Rome in April of 2019. Mifsud was photographed in Switzerland in May of 2018, and we know what that was all about. That is when he went to visit his friend Stephen Rowe in Switzerland, and he was so paranoid that he traveled completely by train. And there is a photograph of him sitting in Stephen Rowe's office reading a newspaper. That was May of 2018. That's when he gave information to Rowe, which Rowe later relayed to the press. Then in November 2019, this recording surfaced that features someone claiming to be Mifsud. The tape has been examined by several different experts. They do not agree on whether the tape is actually Mifsud or not. Of course, Mifsud's wallet and passport turn up August 5th, 2017, somewhere in a place close to Morocco, and it was later given to Italian authorities. They didn't get it for like 6 months later. And apparently, after that time, he applied for another passport, and that passport shows that he traveled to both Ukraine and Russia. Stephen Rowe and a French journalist wrote a book on Mifsud and claimed that the former interior minister of Italy, Vincenzo Scotti, is the one who told Mifsud to go into hiding. Vincenzo Scotti is also the person who introduced Papadopoulos to Mifsud when he arrived at Link University. And he was told to go there by Evander Sambe, who, of course, used to work for Uncle Bob, the executioner. We also know that David Ignatius went to Link University, studied there during the time that Mifsud was teaching there. And of course, we know that David Ignatius was most certainly on the payroll of the Clinton campaign in 2016. Mifsud knew the Clintons' longtime friend and Secretary of State under Bill Clinton, Strobe Talbott. Mifsud knew very well Strobe Talbott, who is also the brother-in-law of Cody Shearer. Stephen Rowe says in his book that Mifsud believes that he was set up. Mifsud thinks that he was set up. Mifsud is described by Stephen Rowe as being a Clintonist. Mifsud went underground the first time after his name was made public, and as I just stated, that was about a week after Papadopoulos was charged by Uncle Bob the executioner. Mueller wouldn't talk about Mifsud when Jim Jordan pressed him on it during the hearings. And so it seems like Mueller and the deep state that he was working for wanted to keep Papadopoulos silent. That's why they put a gag order on him. They didn't want him talking about Mifsud, and clearly Uncle Bob the executioner, nor anyone else in the Democratic Party, the Senate Intelligence Committee, they just don't want to talk about Mifsud. Public records show that Mifsud applied for police protection in Italy at the time that he gave a deposition. At that time, he gave a deposition to explain why people may want to harm him. Barr and Durham have heard that taped deposition. Several Italian newspapers have reported that Mifsud did meet with Barr and Durham and is cooperating with their investigation. Maybe, but again, this is just a couple of Italian newspapers, and there are other papers that are reporting the opposite. Maybe Barr and Durham did meet with Mifsud the second time, but from what we've heard about how that went down the second time they went to Italy, wouldn't sound like they were very successful in getting what they wanted. They seemed to be kind of upset that Italian officials weren't coming off the information that Barr and Durham believe they have. If they would have actually interviewed Mifsud while there, I would think they'd have been pretty happy about that. But again, I don't know. This is just what is being reported by the Italian press. We also know that Mifsud worked directly under Michael Frendo when he was on this board for a university in Malta. Frendo is a close associate and counterpart of Alexander Down the Hatch Downer. Mifsud worked directly under Frendo, and Frendo is a very long time close friend, associate, and counterpart of Alexander Down the Hatch Downer. Mifsud met with the Rotten Reverend Clinton and some other officials in December of 2016. They met in Washington, D.C., and they were meeting about Mifsud possibly speaking at a summit that was going to be organized in conjunction with the State Department. So here we now have a second meeting where Mifsud and the Rotten Reverend Clinton are in the same meeting. First, at a dinner with some Italian officials in the summer of 2016 in Europe, probably while she was at the EU, and then again in Washington, D.C. in December of 2016. Mifsud, the Rotten Reverend Clinton, and some other officials meeting to talk about speaking at a summit. Mifsud met with Boris Johnson and some other diplomats in October of 2017. Mifsud, while attending that function where he met and was photographed with Boris Johnson and some other diplomats in October 2017, also is pictured with Tobias Ellwood. That's right, Mifsud photographed with Tobias Ellwood at the function I just mentioned. Now keep in mind that Tobias Ellwood and Papadopoulos met multiple times while Papadopoulos was in London in the spring of 2016 while he was being set up. And keep in mind, Ellwood was a UK Foreign Office minister, and Papadopoulos is saying that Barr should look very closely at Ellwood. Mifsud's girlfriend is Ukrainian. They have a 3 to 4 year old daughter. She says she hasn't heard from Mifsud in over 2.5 years. Papadopoulos' wife, Simona, was introduced to Mifsud by Italian MEP Gianna Pittella in 2012. Pittella is a longtime friend of the Clintons. Simona also went to work at, and she was encouraged to go to work at the London Centre for International Law Practice by Pittella, working under Mifsud back in 2016. And that is where she met Papadopoulos. So we have Italian officials saying they're 80% sure Mifsud is dead. We have Papadopoulos tweeting out right after that no, he is not swimming with the fishes. More to come. Of course, Mifsud's not been heard from since the spring of 2018. And of course, we learned a long time ago that for some strange reason, Mifsud's history has been wiped going back before 2006. You cannot find anything on Mifsud prior to 2006. It's like Mifsud never existed until 2006. Then he pops up. He's everywhere. You can find tons of stuff on Mifsud from 2006 on. Prior to 2006, he's a ghost. So what's going on? Well, as I said, Mifsud is demonstrating one trait that is very common with people in Western intelligence, or any intelligence for that matter. He lies. Clearly, the guy lies. Whereas, on the other hand, Papadopoulos seems to be telling the truth. Papadopoulos acts like an innocent man. Mifsud is the guy that's in hiding, but he says he has nothing to hide about. Wasn't part of any Western intelligence operations, wasn't working for anybody, wasn't being paid, wasn't doing anything. Yet he's hiding. Says he has something to fear, but the best thing he could do is come forward, get it out. There's now a legitimate investigation which is going to go after the bad guys and clear the innocent guys, and this is a chance for him to get his life back, to clear his name. That's what an innocent person would do. Barr and Durham can provide all the protection he would need. Maybe they are. We just don't know. But if I'm guessing, I think he's hiding. And I think he's getting help. Because I don't think that you can go off the grid without some help. You know, he can't just be living in a cave or underground. I don't think he could do it. It's not been his lifestyle. This guy's used to wine and cheese parties, staying in 5-star hotels, hanging out with the upper crust, living in nice apartments, upper-class dwellings. This guy is not a guy that's just going to go underground and rough it. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. Now, as far as him being part of Western intelligence asset or whatever, you know, it's very likely that he may have been used. Remember, he told Stephen Rowe he thinks he was set up. What does that mean? It means he figures out after the fact that something that he did or was asked to do, even though he wasn't working in a professional capacity, he did something that later came back to bite him in the butt because his name became public as being part of this operation. And as I've said many times before, and as Durham and Barr figured out on day one, Mifsud is the key to unraveling the entire Operation Crossfire Hurricane and the entire frame-up plot. Because if Mifsud is not a Western agent, then the whole plot gets blown up. If he actually didn't get that information from Russia, the whole plot's blown up. That means that someone else told him to tell Papadopoulos about Russians having Hillary's emails. So his testimony, if he told the truth, would be very damaging to our deep state and any of the foreign governments that were involved. They would be the ones that would want to make sure that he doesn't talk. Barr and Durham want him to talk. Papadopoulos would like him to talk. I would like him to talk. You would like him to talk. We all want him to talk. The only people who wouldn't want him to talk are the deep staters, both domestic and foreign. Now keep in mind the way that, my background is military, but it's true whether it's military, intelligence, law enforcement. A lot of times there are people who are informants, and a lot of times they won't even know they're informants. They don't always come up to you and tell you, hey, I'm with the FBI or the CIA, and I'd like you to give some information. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes they trick you. Sometimes they just pretend to have a happenstance meeting with you, and they befriend you. They get you to trust them a little bit. Then they go out to a bar and have a few drinks with you and have some conversation, have a little dinner, and they get you talking. And they get you talking about the things that they want to know. And you end up becoming an informant and you don't even know it. Then there are other informants who are actually paid informants, and they know they're informants. But in the world of investigations, counterintelligence, military, intelligence, FBI, police, something that we all understand is that everything is done, especially in intelligence investigations, where everything is compartmentalized, where no one person, except for the very people at the very top running the investigation, only the very top tier people at the top of the investigation know everything. Even the agents working for them only know what they need to know to conduct their part of the investigation, and the informants that they're using, again, very compartmentalized. They're only told a little bit about what they need to know, only what they need to know, just to get the information or provide information or do whatever they need them to do. Everything very compartmentalized. Very few people, only the ones at the very top, know everything about what's going on and why. So it's very likely that Mifsud could have been used as an asset without him even knowing about it. And it only dawned on him after his name dropped, after Papadopoulos' charge and the Spygate fiasco and the Trump-Russia hoax and all that. And that's when he realizes, uh-oh, I got myself into something I didn't even realize. And that's probably what he means when he tells Stephen Rowe that he thinks he was set up. So, is Mifsud dead? Well, when you say the word dead, what does that mean? I mean, as far as we know, he had no health issues. I mean, did he pass away? Did someone kill him? Did he kill himself? I mean, what's going on? It was a violent death. Was it murder? Was it he slip in the shower, fall off the roof? What happened? What happened? Because if he just passed away, somebody probably would have found his corpse by now. There probably would have been a funeral. Family would have been notified. Services would have been held. But that's not what they're saying. They're saying he's dead. He's dead? What? But there's no death certificate? There's no record that he died, but they think he died. Well, how do you think he died if he died? They don't really say, but you don't have to be a genius to figure it out. Obviously, they're not suggesting he died of natural causes or of some health issue. He's come up dead is what they're saying, which would suggest foul play. Either suicide or someone suicided him, helped him out with that or something. But we really don't know. But my gut instinct is that he's still alive. He's being protected by some foreign intelligence service, deep state. Killing him is messy. And if you do kill him and someone finds out that he had some, death, strange death or whatever, that only raises more questions. So I think that they've got him deep underground, some intelligence service. They're protecting him while protecting himself. That's what I think. Will Barr and Durham track him down and get him? I don't know. But they don't need to, because they got Stefan Halper, Alexander Downer, and others who do know. I'd put the pressure on him. That's how you find out about Mifsud. Maybe the only way you ever find out about Mifsud. Thanks so much. Be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See ya. Bye.